and that was really sort of in tune with people's resistance to change and their sort of, I really think that everybody wants to make school communities better, but nobody really wants to change deeply ingrained practices, because that can feel really challenging. So over time, I started to develop my own framework to help schools to think about that sort of contextual, systemic, real-world development. And that's called a contextual wellbeing framework, and that links to the name of probably by far and away my most successful book, which is Contextual Wellbeing. So broadly speaking, it's a philosophy and a framework which helps schools to understand relationships between what they do in terms of culture, community, practice that works well for the students and the staff, and what challenges the students and the staff, and what they could do better. And to aid schools in this process, I divide context into 4 domains. So this is an artificial distinction of context. Everything in context interrelates with everything else, but I think it really helps schools to see a bigger picture of development. So those 4 domains. So that first domain is people. And this is really the domain that most schools will focus on. So the relationships between students and staff, the broader community, these things are all vitally important in supporting drivers of important life goals. And for example, feedback, the staff who give feedback on the in terms of grades or awards, often compared with the grades or the percentages that other students get, are really supporting status and acknowledgement, as opposed to giving feedback, which is more about critique and opportunity to improve, and a sense that learning is a process and not necessarily something we compete with others for. So relationships absolutely key. John Marshall Reeve, nod to him for doing so well at really sort of unpacking that agency supportive communication style. The second domain, which was mentioned in my breakout room this morning, policy and practice. So you could broadly say that schools develop policy and practice as a way of managing behaviour within the school community and guiding students towards primarily academic outcomes. Much of the policy and practice that I see in schools globally is based with this sort of encouragement of aiming for status, acknowledgement, and recognition, as opposed to self-determination. For example, I see a lot of behavioural management policy and practice, which is about control, coercion. It's about token economies, rewards and stickers and stars for behaving well, versus detentions and punishments, consequences for not behaving well, as opposed to a more a policy and practice that's more about restorative practice, relationships, building social awareness, compassion, and understanding. The third domain is that of social norms. So policy and practice might well be developed to guide behaviour, but the true guide of all social behaviour comes from norms, from social norms. And they're so powerful because we internalise norms without necessarily giving them a lot of conscious attention, but they very much dictate the culture of a school community and the things that people within that community will do. And then you would hope that in a healthy school community, the norms will reflect the values of that community, or at least the spoken values, but that's often not the case. For example, I might often go into a school which would talk about values of honesty and trust and respect, and yet in practice, the norms will be to make sure you have your padlock on your locker. Students might get locked out of the classroom at lunchtime. There'll be warnings to keep your possessions with you. And that's really sort of like encouraging a normative sense that we can do anything but trust other people. Or I'll walk into a school reception and see a "be respectful to our staff" poster, or into a playground with a bully-free zone, which is really saying that these things are a concern to us here. It's actually normal that we have to be really aware of other people's behaviour because it's not good. So norms are really powerful and an important way to think about developing a healthier approach to setting goals. The fourth domain which also doesn't get a huge amount of attention in schools, I believe, is that of the physical space of the school. So here I'm talking beyond things like natural lighting and good temperature and the layout of the school, and thinking more powerfully about the messages on the walls of the school community, which again have a huge power because we don't necessarily give them a lot of our conscious attention, but they really drive school culture and the understanding of what matters. And I've really lost count of the number of times that I've gone into a school reception, met the principal, head teacher, and been told, in this community, we value every student. And yet when I look around, I see a trophy cabinet, a school leadership board, and it sort of always makes me I always think of Animal Farm in the back of my mind and think, everyone's equal here. And yet some students are just a little bit more equal than others. And it's those sort of messages in the environment that are all powerful and telling the students and indeed the staff what really matters in that community as a driver of success. So working across these contextual domains with a focus and understanding of self-determination theory and the need to support that equitably, and I say that with a nod there, especially to competency, which is often not equitably supported in school communities. I help schools to really acknowledge and recognise what they're doing really well that can be broadened and built upon, what challenges are in the way, and what next steps. Over the last 25 years now, I've worked with schools in every state and territory in Australia, in Europe, in Canada, in the UK, and a lot in Southeast Asia. I've worked with the Department of Education, especially with the Western Australian Department of Education, with Catholic schools, especially in New South Wales, in Queensland, and more recently in the Northern Territory, international school chains with Dulwich, with English Schools Foundation. Most recently, I'm working with United World College around the world. And I've seen fantastic changes. I've seen schools transform. I've seen wellbeing transform. There's a whole high school opening in Canberra in January based on contextual wellbeing framework, which is super exciting for me. But having said all this and seeing all of these great things that really keep me excited, I also see still the vast majority of schools support young people with an aim of status, recognition, and acknowledgement. And on that, I just want to finish this very brief talk by just naming three of the biggest concerns, or just highlighting them briefly, that I see in schools that I've worked with over the last year, or certainly 2 years. And those are firstly, psychological safety. So I don't think there's anywhere near enough attention paid to building psychological safety, establishing psychological safety before other things are done. Psychological safety needs to be a foundation of everything that happens in the school community. For example, I'll often see that schools will have very clear pastoral care pathways that they're very proud of, but they've paid no attention to thinking about whether students feel safe to actually talk to those people who are signalled as people you can go to with an issue. Or teachers will talk about wanting to be inclusive and open the class to everyone speaking, or encourage people to present to others in a social situation without paying attention to how risky that might feel to those within that situation. So risk is rarely assessed. The second issue that I'm seeing universally in the developed world is the misuse and overuse of technology in schools, which is really limiting the free time that young people need to develop in a way that supports their self-determination, autonomous motivation, helps them learn about who they are. So there's certainly a lot of recent attention placed on phones in schools, but here I'm really talking about all those laptops and Surface devices that are used in just about every class. And I'm seeing that all the way down to really early years of primary school, elementary school, to high schools, where 75% of the time it seems young people are on a device. And even though technology can do amazing things, the time we spend on technology means you're not doing other things. And young people need to learn how to get along with each other offline, to learn who they are. They need opportunity for free time and to be bored. And I fear that they just don't get bored and sit with themselves enough. And then the third thing I very briefly want to mention, because I know I'm just about out of time, and that is that this push for status and acknowledgement is still rife in schools, and it's absolutely a concern for me that there's still this push to focus on outcomes. The Australian system is a comparative, competitive system in that your final year grades are based on how everybody else did, and that in itself is problematic. There are a lot of controlling systems for behaviour that are actually becoming increasingly popular rather than less so. And so the challenge is still there, the fight is still on, but I'm in it, and I'm so pleased to have you all sort of listening to me today and here, because I know there are great people doing great things in this space. So thank you.
Looking forward to the Q&A when we have had a chance to listen to Geneviève. But Helen, thank you so very much. I can't wait to talk more about this.
Thank you.
Back to me?
Yep.
Okay.
You're up.
Okay, so let's take a few minutes to hear from Geneviève Boisclair Chateauvert. Geneviève, I got put in contact with Lee, and I got put in contact with Geneviève through Shannon in the office, the CSDT office, and said she's got this really interesting thing. I think you guys should get to know with what she's doing. And so we exchanged some emails and had a phone conversation and so forth. And I found this absolutely delightful. So I thought it would be really interesting, fun for people in this group to hear about what they're doing also. So, and especially nice that Monia and Nancy and Ami are able to be with us also. So, Geneviève, and you might say a little bit about yourself also. Geneviève has been a long time employee at University of Laval in Canada, and she works in research, a lot of research for years. She's actually did a lot of research before she decided, I think, to go and get a PhD, which she's in the PhD program right now. But she has huge experience in doing research and working with self-determination theory, and working with Catherine, who is here with us also and is one of her mentors. So if you want to say anything else about yourself, please do. But Geneviève, please tell us about École Bourg.
Thank you. Don't you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So as David said, my name is Geneviève Boisclair Chateauvert. I'm a PhD student at Université Laval in Quebec, Canada. But before starting my doctoral studies, I worked for 15 years as a research professional in education. I'm interested in connecting research with practice and collaborating with school. Last year, I developed a partnership with an elementary school, and today I'm very pleased to share our collaboration with you. I will present the wonderful work they are doing and show you some of the tools they have created to promote students' self-determination. As you already say, David, joining us online are Nancy Johnson, a special education technician who initiated the project and created the tools I will present, and Monia Mercier, the school principal. And joining them, the English teacher, Amy Ferland, is also here to help with translation during the discussion. So École Bourg is an elementary school located in Carleton-sur-Mer in the Gaspésie region of Quebec. In recent years, the school has chosen to place students' self-determination at the heart of its educational project. SDT now guides the intervention and action of the school staff. It all started in 2021 when a special education technician, Nancy Johnson, learned about self-determination theory during a working group at her school board. She embraced the idea and wanted to apply its principle at her school. She first created tools and tested the approach with one student, then with one classroom. After observing positive effect, she and the school principal decided to implement these practices on a larger scale. Today, Nancy not only develop tools for students, but also support teachers and staff in adopting practice aligned with SDT. After 3 years of implementation at École Bourg, the team approached us to develop a partnership. They felt their practices were working well, but wanted to know if they were truly aligned with SDT. In fact, the staff had embraced the idea of students' self-determination, but without specialized knowledge of the theory. They introduced practices intuitively without knowing all the mechanisms that make them effective. All the tools were developed by the school staff. My role was to check whether these practices align with SDT. We found that their interventions are effective because they meet students' 3 basic psychological needs through supportive classroom practices. So, how they implement it? First, the school decided to put students at the center of everything they do. They really care about their students, they trust them, and they ask for their opinion when making important decisions. Second, they created tools that teachers use in class at all grade levels, from kindergarten to grade 6. There are also special time in class to talk about self-determination and follow up with students. The school decided to include this activity in an existing course. This way, teachers can work on self-determination without adding extra work. The first and the most important tool is the hot air balloon. Each student has their own hot air balloon, which represents their self-determination plan. At the start of the school year, teachers introduce the hot air balloon in class. Some teachers do it on their own, others work with Nancy. Just like with SDT principle, the tools are offered to teachers, but they can be adapted. Over time, as teachers use them more, each one added their own personal touch. These activities take place during the self-determination period in class. The activity always starts with the dreams. Teacher asks students, "What are your dreams?" And students have fun with this question. And their answers are not always about school. This helps teachers learn a lot about them. Each student writes their dream on a star. Then teacher asks, "Where are you if you want to reach your dreams?" And students say, "We are in the hot air balloons. That's us," pointing on the basket. Finally, teacher asks, "How will you reach your dreams?" In Quebec, there is an expression, "Il faut bûcher fort pour y arriver." This means we will have to chop wood, like adding fuels to make the balloon rise. In other words, students understand that they will have to work hard and keep going for a long time to reach their dreams. Through this activity, students understand that they are at the center of the process. After the dreams activity, students set 2 goals, one to reach by Christmas and another by the end of the school year. To help them choose this goal, teachers do self-awareness activities. For example, there is an activity called Ciné-moi, where students draw themselves in different situations, in class, with friends, with adults. Another activity is I am capable, where students identify their strengths in different contexts. Teachers also ask about what students are good at outside school. The idea is to really know the student and help them see their strengths. Then the students go back to their hot air balloon and set 2 goals. First, teacher asks, "Now that you know yourself better, what seems harder for you?" This helps students choose their first goal to reach by Christmas. The only rules is that the goal must be something we can observe at school. Teachers give examples, schoolwork, social skills, cognitive strategies. They also ask, "If you want to succeed this year and feel good at school, what is important for you? What do you want to work on?" Some students find goals quickly, others need more time. This can be hard for teachers because it's the student that chooses the goal, even if it's not what the teacher will have picked. After the first goal, students choose a second one for the end of the school year. Teacher explains, "This is something bigger, something you really want to achieve by the end of the year, something you don't think you can do by Christmas because it will take more time to achieve." Now the 3 stars are identified and students know that they are at the center of the process. Next, students identify what we call bad luck birds. These are things that can make it harder to reach their goals. Teacher give example and draw birds on the board. Then students share their own idea. For example, problem with emotion, conflicts, anxiety, things happening at home. Students choose their bird and color them. Then they decide how big a hole each bird will make in the balloon. They draw the hole in the same color and stick the bird on it. This showed the challenge that could slow them down. Then teacher asks student, do you think you can reach your star by Christmas if your balloon has all these holes? Some students say yes, and they leave it like that. Other students say no, and they decide, I need to take care of this hole first. In that case, they move the bird to the star so the student can work on it first. When the hole is fixed, a patch is added to the balloon. It's like healing or repairing. Bad luck birds can be chased away, but some will be always there, so students have to learn to live with them and keep them from making new holes in their balloon. Next, teacher look at student motivation for their goals. They use a motivation continuum shown here. On this chart, characters represent different types of motivation. The continuum is displayed on classroom walls and taught to students. As you can see, for example, Paul and Paulette represent intrinsic motivation. They do things for fun and interest. Jean represents identify motivation. He chooses to do things because they are important and help him reach his goal. Natasha represents external motivation. She do things to please her parent or to get a reward or to avoid punishment. And at the end of the continuum, you have Bob, who represents our motivation. He does not know why he do the task. Teacher and student use the name of these characters in their daily vocabulary. For example, a teacher might say to a student, you seem to feel like Bob today. Are you okay? If you want to stay Bob, that's okay. But if you want to change character, I will be here if you need help. Just come and ask me. Teacher explained that motivation can change depending on the activity or even the day. It's okay if the motivation is not the most self-determined. They don't have to always be Paul and Paulette. The important thing is to know what type of motivation they have. Students choose the character that match their motivation and write it on a magic wand. After that, students think about what they can do to reach their goals. Teacher asks, what action will you take to reach your star or to chase your bird? Are there people who can help you? Students write this action directly on their hot air balloon. Every 2 weeks, teachers meet with students during the self-determination period in class. They guide the student through a reflection process with questions like, do you remember your star? Have you worked on it? Did someone help you? Which motivation character are you now? After this reflection, several things can happen. Some students have reached their star, so teacher give them a new hot air balloon sheet to choose a new goal. Others want to keep working on the same star because they are still motivated. Some feel like Bob, no motivation, so they decided to change their star and start a new sheet. And sometimes the star feels too far away, or a new bad luck bird appear, or the strategy doesn't work. In that case, they can adjust their goal or their plan. If teacher notice that the student never remember their star or hasn't worked on it, they start asking questions like, why don't you remember your challenge? It is really something important for you? Teacher asks these questions without imposing anything. They also check, is your star too far away? Is it too difficult to reach? After this conversation, teacher write comments, observation, and questions directly on the student sheet. This follow-up is very important. If students are left alone with the sheet, the school staff observe that often nothing changed during the school year. Finally, there is a strong focus on celebrating success. When students reach their star during the school year, the achievement is celebrated in class. At the end of the year, a special activity is dedicated to celebrating their effort and their pride. In each classroom, there is a party with balloons and banners. Students receive a certificate and share something they are proud of from the year. It's not always related to their hot air balloon sheet. It can be any achievement that make them feel proud and stronger for the next school year. Teachers at École Bourg have noticed positive effects since they start these practices. There are fewer disruptive behavior in class. Students speak up more, manage their emotion better, and show greater autonomy. Even the high school that welcomed the student later has seen a difference and shared their observation. Their main question was, why does this work? Why does this work so well? Through interview with teacher and questionnaire with students, we found that these practices support student psychological need. In addition to the observation made by the school, we also analyzed data collected from students. By comparing them with students from another school with a similar sociodemographic profile, we found some interesting patterns. Questionnaire results show that students from École Bourg report greater enjoyment of school. Moreover, their enjoyment remained high through the school year, whereas a decline was observed among students in the comparison school. Another noteworthy finding is that students from École Bourg express fewer worries about the transition to high school. Their worries also decrease over time, while they increase among students in the comparison school. These findings suggest that students exposed to SDT-inspired practices appear to be better prepared for this transition. So, without knowing the exact word of SDT, teachers naturally support autonomy, competence, and relatedness by focusing on students in their interventions. In this way, the students are at the center of their balloon, and the teacher intervention acts as a driving force, helping them reach self-determination. Here are some examples of hot air balloon sheet filled out by students in grade 3 and 4. I don't know if I have the time to present it or not. Yes. They are in French, but as you can see, their dreams are quite different. The first student wants her grandmother to feel better, and the second one wants to become a YouTuber and work in pastry. Their short-time goals are both related to math. They both choose the name Frédéric for their motivation, which means they picked goals that match their value and they believe are good for them. Their bad luck birds are also similar. They mention fatigue and stress. The first student also added impatience, and the second one added concentration. Even though they identify the same bad luck birds, the size of the hole in the balloon is not the same. The second child hole are bigger. In the purple writing on the first sheet, you can see comments from the teacher like, I hope so for you, and it's important for you, and you will do everything to make it happen. On the first sheet, we also see the strategies the student want to use to reach her goal right directly on the balloon. She said she will take her time and ask her mother for help. The teacher commented on that too, saying things like, great, it's a good idea, and will you ask your mother to do this with you in the evening at home? Thank you for your attention. It was a pleasure to share this with you. If you have any questions, we will be happy to answer them. And Nancy and Monia from École Bourg are also here if you'd like to know more about their interventions.
Thank you so much. What an incredibly creative approach. And I I particularly love how the motivation spectrum is put into words that make sense to children, and thinking about why am I the way I am today, right? We have some questions. There's one in the chat first that is for Helen. And Helen, I just want to say I'm a big fan of Age of Opportunity by Lawrence Steinberg. And he talks a lot at the end of that book about why information is not an effective way to help kids change their behavior or become more character rich. And the example we use in the United States is the program called DARE, which doesn't work because it doesn't.
I know a lot about that.
Yeah, because DARE didn't work because it was all information. It didn't engage the kids where they are and what they cared about. So that resonated. I like jumped out to Lawrence Steinberg. Anyway, okay, first question. This is from Masato. Could you share some examples of how to teach psychological safety based on self-determination theory? If there are any examples for primary school children, regardless of their age, they would like to be aware of them.
Yeah,
Dawn, you'll be next.
Absolutely. I'll just rewind though to the DARE comment that you made, Lee. I find that quite fascinating that the DARE program cost the US government $3 billion and was rolled out into 80% of high schools. Yeah, complete failure. In fact, some schools, the students were more likely to abuse substances after the program. Exactly. I think it wasn't just about the fact it was information. There was no user buy-in. You can't flip a therapy model and tell people they're going to have therapy. And those that were the most disengaged with school and disconnected are those least likely to engage with the wellbeing program, aren't they? There are so many reasons why programs and teaching doesn't work. Yes. But moving on to psychological safety. So psychological safety is all about managing risk, and what feels risky can be different to different people. So there is no universal sense of if we do A, B, and C, we're going to make a safe environment. Always you need to establish an understanding of what feels risky first. And of course, you could simply say to your class, okay, is there anything here that feels like it might be scary or risky, or using age-appropriate language? But that question to a whole class might feel very risky to answer. And especially with young people, because descriptive norms are so powerful in guiding all behavior of young people that they're going to look around and think, what am I supposed to say to this? What's the right answer, more than what do they personally think? So on one-on-one conversations, small groups, you need a chance to actually sit down and say to someone, what's good about school? I'd always start with the positives and say, what do you love about the classroom? What makes it feel like a safe place, a good place to be? And establishing that positive beginning helps people to feel relaxed, to open up, to start chatting, because it feels much safer to talk about the positives anyway. And so then you can come in and say, what about, does anything make you feel a bit nervous or anxious or scared? Again, using language that's appropriate to the age group. And that's when they'll start really opening up to you. And then you could say to them, what could we do to help that feel a bit safer to you? So be guided by students. And honestly, 99% of the time when people ask me, what would you do about A, B, or C in a school? I say, why don't you ask the students? But it's asking them in a way that they feel safe to respond, and that they feel confident, and that they can reach a point where they're giving you their own opinions. So I avoid surveys and sort of Likert scales as much as possible. Believe in real conversations between people. I think that in Australia, it's very common to have a parent-teacher meet in the first term of the school year. I really think that the best schools flip these and use that as an opportunity for teachers to hear a little bit more from parents about who the children are, as opposed to some sort of like rapid dating weird thing where teachers either tell you that your child's doing great or not, and then you walk away and nothing really happens.
Right.
So I think that flipping those meetings can be great.
Yes, agreed.
But it is.
I was going to say that there's a bit of a corollary to the birds. The challenges that Geneviève was describing can also be psychological challenges, and it's a way of thinking about those risks in that model.
And it can also be, especially if you feel, it can be more helpful as well to ask children what they think about other children, and that can feel safer for them to answer as well. So what do you think other children in your class might find a bit scary? Do you think they might find it scary to present in front of the class? And that can help open up that conversation in a less threatening, less direct way. Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you so much for all of that. Masato, did that give you the information you were looking? Yes, I just saw your response. Yeah. Don, go ahead.
Wonderful. So I'll direct my, so first of all, thank you both. I think it's really great to see the emphasis on, practical application, people actually doing it in the schools. My first question is for Helen. So we've talked a lot about kind of creating safety for the kids and focus on the kids, but my interest is at these higher levels. Are there particular policy shifts or practice shifts that you've seen at the kind of principal to teacher, staff level, or even beyond that, if there is? But what are some of the policy levers that you've seen that seem to be making a positive difference?
Okay, good question. So yeah, we've absolutely focused on students, but everything that I said refers to staff and what's happening in the staff room as well. And if it doesn't, then it's really hard to translate that to students. So absolutely agree on that one. The biggest shifts I've seen in schools universally are in terms of behaviour management and shifting away from a controlling model. That's about, I sort of see it as a sort of Old Testament justice must be done, sort of tooth for a tooth sort of approach, to moving to an understanding that everybody's doing their best to belong, and some people don't get it right or don't understand the rules or need more support in that. But it's not about people deliberately trying to exclude themselves or hurt others. So they're sort of like throw them out versus bring them closer. And so behavioural management change is huge, but also, and especially in the international school community, I've seen fantastic changes with just having no grades given out. So I'm thinking, for example, of a high school that does the IB. So in the final 2 years of school, they sort of have to meet all the requirements of the IB diploma. But until year 10, no student is ever given any grade, and that they're just given feedback, constructive feedback. And they started this in year 7 about 7 years ago now, or sort of pre-COVID, they started this. And they started it in year 7 in case it all went horribly wrong. So they thought they'd have time to reverse it. That's what schools do. And they found that immediately the students started to get along better with each other because there was less competition. But students were willing to persevere more, take more risks because they weren't so fearful of getting a bad mark. The students that were really competent and doing really well at a subject were also more likely to persevere because they didn't think, oh, I've got that one sus, I don't need to try anymore. Parents reported, and this is the Southeast Asian parent community who could be very concerned with grades and outcomes. But they actually reported, we love this because we are not having our children come home in tears or fall out with each other or worry about what other people might say. So they've carried it on through the school, and now it's just part of school life. And that's probably a sort of a great example. And I've seen that to a greater or lesser degree across schools.
Thank you so much. Mark.
Thank you both so much for your presentations today. As you were showing me the balloons, Geneviève, I was like thinking about all of the birds poking holes in my own personal balloons right now. I figured I got pulled them into some stars myself. Thank you for sharing. Helen, I've got a question for you, actually, because something that I've been thinking about just sort of recently. So how, or maybe where have you seen like student work being displayed in a way that helps like level, but at the same time also like achieve a high vision, right? Like, how, like I would love to hear your thoughts on this because right now I'm working in this program and we have a pile of extraordinary things happening, right? Like a student of mine just presented over at Cold Harbor as a 16-year-old this research on genetics in rice. He was like the only high school student in the the room, and he's got like one of those posters, right? Like, like one of those posters of science posters that like you look at it and you're like, Jesus, like I can't even touch this thing, right? Um, and it's a document of deep learning, and he's in a self-determined environment, right? Which is, I think there's a lot to say about that. But like, how do you display work when you get things like of that caliber without like making everyone like feel inferior, right? Like, I was wondering if you've seen any spaces or if you've seen like displays of work that really worked to help keep people's eyes like high, but also not to
Good
make people feel
question.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, it is a good question, and it's I actually had met Richard Ryan in Sydney a few years ago, and we had a conversation about this. When is praise and celebration supporting self-determination, and when is it diminishing it? Um, so I can quote him a little bit, which might help. But he talked a lot about how intention is key, and I couldn't agree more. So I feel firstly that maintaining high expectations is so important. No matter where anyone's at, we really know if they're given the right supports that people can do amazing things. Um, and gone are the days where there are some special gifted people and everyone else is just average. So I really believe in maintaining high expectations. I think if you genuinely want to celebrate and are amazed and inspired by something, then share that. And that is a good thing. The problem becomes when we start handing out praises and good jobs and as a way to sort of garner compliance from others or to use someone as an example. So in that, giving celebratory feedback that is quite one-on-one, and so sharing feedback with a family in a sort of private way is more powerful than everybody clapping in an assembly, which sort of feels more managed and artificial. I've seen lots of opportunities for work to be displayed, which is done in a way where everybody gets their work displayed, but that doesn't mean that you can't just highlight things that amaze you in a very genuine way. But at the same time, I think all feedback should come with a belief in the possibilities ahead for every young person. And that sort of, if you believe that somebody has potential to do well, even wherever they're at right now, that's far more important than feeling you have to give strength-based feedback, which I'm actually not a fan of at all, because I feel it's often, you can't do much with it and it's artificial. It's better to be really critical and genuine and say, you know what, I'm going to actually say, I think you could change this and this and this because I believe in your possibility to excel. So, but if you think something's amazing, say it and be genuine about it. Absolutely. So it's that intent that is key, but show everybody's work.
No, that's super helpful. Yeah, like we're struggling with it because we'll get these phenomenal products that are so next level. And it's like and you put it next to another kid's work and it's like, whoa. And then if you put it on another wall or if you don't show
I don't
kids
think
are talking about it anyway, right? So it's
you
kind
want
of
to be genuine. You don't want to pretend something's not great because you don't want to
right.
upset someone else. I'll be saying, look, this is amazing. I love this. And that's real and genuine. And the person that's maybe done something that's not so amazing, you can say, well, you can almost find the humor in that because you're not judging them on that. You're saying, you know what, I think there's a long way to go, but you know what, I think you're going to get there. So it's that sort of like, this is not great yet, but it can be. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexandra.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for a very inspiring presentation. Well, I'm curious, so I have two questions, but I think they are connected. So the first is, as my PhD study, I'm finishing my PhD right now, and I did a study about parental expectations towards school. So it's Russian parents. What do they expect from Russian state schools? And I did a questionnaire based on self-determination theory. So there are different questions about autonomy-supported school, relationship-supported school, etc. And what we found is that for Russian parents, autonomy is much is less required than relationship. Actually, autonomy is not required at all. And I was interested whether it's a cultural phenomena, for example, in Russian schools, or do you find the same maybe reluctance from some parents towards idea that children can be agent and can exercise some autonomy? So it's the first question about parents. Do they support the idea, self-determination theory ideas? And the second question, that sometimes even children, we also have qualitative study with interview of Russian students, and sometimes some of them said that they don't want to exercise their autonomy, so they rely on adults to decide for them, and it's easier for them actually. So what's also interesting for me is, have you ever encountered such children while working with schools or with your students, and what help, how it is possible to learn them, to teach them how to enjoy autonomy?
Okay, well, there's a lot in what you said. So firstly, I'll say that you can't use words like autonomy without defining them first with any community, because understandings of agency in particular vary hugely from country to country and culture to culture. I was actually in China recently, and the Chinese understanding of agency is about how well you can contribute to your community. So it's a very sort of social definition, whereas at the polar end of that, the more American definition might be more about being independent and the individual. So it's about understanding what agency and autonomy means within the culture and the community that you're with, and then supporting that rather than assuming that everybody's got some shared definition. But I find that even in a very sort of collective culture, people want to, and the agency is more about how you contribute to the community around you. That's about being self-directed. That's about visibility. That's about having a voice to contribute. So you're still focusing on elements of who you are as a person and your contribution, but you're framing that in a more social-centered way. So I think that might be really helpful to do. Thinking of parents, so I'll find that especially across Southeast Asia, but I've never worked in Russia, that I find that a lot of families will talk about putting a priority on wanting their children to achieve highly academically, and they consider family relationships important, and absolutely they'll feel it's not about doing what you want, it's about getting high marks. And in that, I think it's about then just always asking, firstly acknowledging that, and then asking the question behind that. Why is that? Why is that important to you? And then asking the question behind that. And if you keep asking the question behind, everyone's ultimately the same. Every parent will say, because I want my child to be safe, to be happy, to live a good life, to have opportunity. And in some cultures and countries, it's seen that they won't have opportunity, be safe and be well, unless they achieve a really sort of high mark. And so it's about thinking, okay, is there another way that we could support well-being? So it's sort of finding the common ground by asking the question behind the question, and then thinking about, okay, we understand that ultimately we all love and care for children and want them to be the best they can be. Maybe they can actually get those high academic outcomes, have opportunities, have status, if we actually make self-determination a priority. So it's sort of gently introducing a different way of understanding that common ground that you found, which is really about well-being, whatever that looks like.
Thank you so much. It's such an interesting cultural observation. I hadn't even thought about that. Geneviève.
Maybe just to add what Helen said, to answer to Alexandra, in the experience I have with the École Bourg, Maybe Nancy will can add to that, because I already have a similar question with her. She said by begin with the dreams. It's a good idea to start for autonomy of the child, because I have a conversation with David, and he said, what they do if the child doesn't want to go in the hot air balloon? And Nancy answered me, it never happened, because we start with the dreams and we let them dreams and we let them choose what they want. And after that, they naturally saw that to reach their dream, they have to be at the center and they have to be on the hot air balloon. And teachers are there to push them, to help them, but they cannot be the only one who push for them, because the hot air balloon will go on the floor and not reach their dream. So it's the way they use to implement the autonomy of their student.
Great, thank you. Starting with dreams. You know, when you were talking, Geneviève, I was thinking about what Helen said at the very start about how there are two different ways that kids and adults that I know too aspire to live their lives. One set of goals is about who they are and who they want to be, and the other is that status thing. So I'm curious as to whether or not you in the school have noticed that that some of those dreams might be more status driven versus more intrinsically motivated personal dreams. I don't know if I articulated that very well, but
I think Nancy is better than me to answer that, because I don't have see the sheet of the students. So
sure.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. So Helen spoke at the beginning about how goals can be either sort of about who you are and who you want to be versus more status oriented, both for children and for adults. And I'm wondering if when you start with the dreams, if you have noticed that any of those dreams are status driven and yeah.
Donc, est-ce que tu as remarqué si, quand on commence avec le rêve, si les objectifs des enfants ont l'air d'être plus, viennent plus d'un endroit de motivation intrinsèque, ou qui viennent, ou si tu remarques si ça vient plus, je ne sais pas trop comment, le statut, ben, comme des rêves de genre, de statut, de grandeur.
OK, parce qu'à cause de ce qu'elle parlait, là.
Oui. Oui, comme si tu commences avec le rêve, est-ce que tu trouves que ça a l'air de venir plus d'une place de...
Ah non, c'est intrinsèque, ça vient d'eux, là.
Okay.
Ah oui, ça vient vraiment d'eux, là. Tu sais, on a eu des gens qui voulaient faire des robots pour la NASA, on a eu des joueurs de hockey, fait que ça vient vraiment d'eux, pas de leurs parents, là.
Pas de leurs parents.
Non.
Okay.
Non, oui.
Okay. From what we have experienced and seen with the children, starting with their dreams really does seem to bring out objectives that are intrinsically motivated in what we have observed. So dreams, it's not about their parents or what their parents would want. It's really reaches something inside them that they really are passionate about, or
Great, thank you. There was a question in the chat from Mark asking if anyone is aware of a valid tool to measure change and engagement over time. And if anybody has anything, they can toss it in the chat.
I don't use a single tool. I use a sort of combination of things. So talking to people and sort of qualitative data, I think is really important. But you can also look at things like attendance. participation in class. And you can ask people to sort of open questions can be quite good. And I do use my own scales for looking at how people understand and support and have their agency, relatedness and competency supported in schools. But I would never just use those in isolation. I find that especially young people are so motivated by descriptive norms, by understanding what they think other people do, that you have to be really mindful of that and try and dig beneath the surface all the time, because 9 times out of 10, the younger the person, the more they'll be giving you an answer based on what they think other people might give you as a
based on what they want to hear rather than what they really feel inside, right?
Well, they'll think it's what they really feel. It is what they really feel, but it's a descriptive normative answer as opposed to maybe an attitude-based answer that an adult might give. But none of us are really like independent, are we? We're all sort of socially influenced and socially created. But young people are more created by descriptive norms, adults more created by social attitude.
David.
After hearing Erica Patel talk about engagement, which she did a few months ago for us, and I would be surprised if there were any tools, any instruments to measure that. John Marshall would be a great person to answer that. Also, he was here earlier, and I noticed his camera isn't on anymore, so he might be away from that. He certainly would know if anybody here would. But I feel like measuring engagement and extent of engagement is something that we're really working more and more towards in self-determination theory. It's a relatively new concept in terms of measuring it and so forth, and certainly something that's definitely worth working on. But I think we're probably pretty new on that.
Yeah, it's so multifaceted because it also brings in, your ability to attend to something, impulsivity, interest. There are so many other factors.
Well,
we have any last questions before we head off into the sunset or back to bed, as the case may be?
Into the day. Yeah.
Let me thank you all for being here. It's just really great to have people here and to have people from so many places. I just wanted to let you know that next month, I believe, if I remember correctly, we are meeting on the 20th of January. We're meeting at the same time of the day or of the night, for better or for worse. And apologies to those of you who suffer during that time. But our presenter is going to be Rebecca Cawley, who has done a lot of work. She's done a lot of work with Richard Ryan, as a matter of fact. But one of the areas that she really looks at a lot is self-determination theory and social emotional learning in schools, and how those things overlap. She's especially interested in social emotional competence. That as a concept, has done some really interesting work on that, I think. So if you're available, interested, please look at the article that we have posted on the Self-Determination Theory website in terms of reading for Rebecca. But it's January the 20th. And
yes.
In the meantime, wishes to everybody for a really happy year, and a happy new year, that is to say, end of a year that could have been better in many, many, many ways, and hope for a better year next year. But thank you, Lee, for doing what you've done. Any other last?
I just want to say thank you
comments?
To Helen and to Geneviève. This I always walk away from these meetings feeling so inspired, and tonight is certainly no exception to that. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Et les enseignantes à l'école, merci bien d'être venues, d'être avec nous.
Thank you. It was very inspiring.
Okay.
Thank you. If anyone has anything they want to ask or comment, please do send me an email or follow up. But I'm loving this new time slot, so I'll definitely see you in January.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of hearts. Helen, I texted my friend Tim in the middle of that and said I could spend hours with you. I'm a physician, that physician and educator, and got involved with self-determination theory thanks to my friend David here. And there was so much of what you said that was just like, yes. So I just thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And it's really good for me to have sort of bright, intelligent, passionate, like-minded people to chat with, because I'm sure you come across a lot of people who think, what is this stuff? This is insane. We should just like give them a sticker and we'll be fine, so it's
right, exactly.
It's really good for me.
Eliminate grades, come on, it's been around. It's very frustrating. Yeah, so it's good.
Yeah, I thought it was wonderful, Helen. It was just great. I mean, I think these two presentations that we heard tonight have been some of my favorites. Just so many really important things that were said, and the kind of reactions that you got from people is just so nice to have you do that.
And I apologize, I did start the recording late.
That happens.
I was so busily engaged in what you were saying. I was like, oh no, I'm not recording it. And then but I got the bulk of what you said. And part of the reason I realized it is like, oh, I want to go back and listen to this again. And then I was like, well, you can't if you haven't pressed record. I do apologize for that. I'm so sorry.
It's not a problem. I did actually. So Contextual Wellbeing, the book came out in 2018. So when it was sort of 5 years out, I did a webinar online that's now you could access on YouTube. That's sort of an hour long overview. So it's a really expanded version of that 20 minutes. So I'll send you the link to that if you like.
That would be wonderful.
Please
yes,
do,
because we'll put that up on the website as well.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, but thanks again, and wishing you both a sort of good Christmas. Hope you're having a Christmassy break and a good New Year. And I'll see you in January.
All right.
That's good. Thanks so much, Helen.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Lee, once again for all you've done.
I had a reception at my son's school in the city, and I hopped on the subway up to his house, so that's where I am now, in the city, so that I could be here on time. But boy, that was really good, David. She's amazing, and that model. I mean, especially, I was a little concerned until I saw their motivation spectrum.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
gosh. They've done some really good work.
Really good work.
Yeah, I hadn't seen any of the illustrations, and so I knew about the birds, I knew about the stars, and I knew about the possible holes, but kind of seeing that the graphics with the rest of it, kind of putting it together and putting it in context of elementary school kids dealing with this is just really, I loved it. I just thought it was
impressive.
Excellent. So
I also I wanted to get that group in Montreal and involved at a question, so that's part of the reason I did that.
I was so glad you did that. Yeah, in terms of bringing them in, I would have felt bad if they were nothing. If those three women had kind of sat through the evening and nobody, we said there may be questions that only you guys can answer and so forth. So the fact that you did that, and then there was that that Nancy had to deal with that question was super. That was great.
Yeah. It was great. Yeah. Well, my friend,
okay.
have
good.
by the way, I found out from Tim, he had a gallbladder attack. So he's having gallbladder surgery in January.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
It was, it was pretty severe. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I haven't talked to him in a long time, but,
I'm going to send him a note tomorrow, or maybe tonight, depending on when I get back to email. But yeah, I just haven't been in contact with him for a long time. But
yeah, I'm
yeah.
so glad he was here.
Yeah,
And
I'm
Marie
glad
Claire,
too.
of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful Christmas and a joyeux New Year as well.
Yeah. You too.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'll probably be in touch before that, but
Yeah,
but anyway.
I probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll figure out MailChimp someday. Oh Lord, I don't know if you noticed. Did you see the responses to the nicest thing that I sent out? So Dan wrote, "Thank you for sending this. Will you please send along more information when you have it?"
Oh, really? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I did see that.
It's like,
I did see that.
I am not your personal secretary.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I wrote a polite response.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Bye-bye.